and welcome to In the Cool of the Day and today's segment of Lay to Rest, Live Well, End Well. I'm your host, Ruth Pegaron, and I have a special show for you today. My guest guides teams in helping professions, especially bereavement and end-of-life professionals, to deal with the demands of the profession and getting through the days. She's a communications specialist with over 16 years of experience. She has created and led over 40 communications workshops. She's a professional actor and founding member of District Community Playhouse, a practitioner of Playback theater for 10 years, and has performed in over 100 Playback theater performances. She is a certified coach in the following areas, including being a life coach, transformational coach, solution-focused coach, and positive psychology coach. So please welcome to the set the uniquely gifted founder of Compassionate Coaching, Erin Whalen. Thank you, Erin, for being here today, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Ruth.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Happy to be here.
Good. And we're going to have a great conversation, and our audience is going to learn all about compassionate coaching, which is so unique and such a helpful organization in helping people. So let's get right at it.
Okay.
How about that?
Great.
Is that
Sounds,
good? All right.
good.
Good. So I want to just ask you, just to get a little bit of understanding of compassionate coaching, but what has been your personal experience with anticipatory grief?
Well, I didn't have the language for it until a couple years ago. That was a phrase I never heard. But I was basically born into a family where my sister, she had cerebral palsy, a really severe case of it. And I'm the youngest of four, and she was the second oldest. And so I basically knew that I was going to outlive my sister.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an experience to grow up in. Wow.
Yeah. And I think that really shaped my life. And I have Gina, to thank for that, that she's always with me. She passed in 2016.
Oh, wow.
She really lived a very full and beautiful life thanks to the great care that she had by my parents.
And by her siblings.
Their siblings.
Yes. So you were living anticipatory grief because you had a sister that, based on just her diagnosis, it was just more likely that you were going to outlive her, just based on the diagnosis. And I like the way you said it. You never knew how to put that phrase with it until just recently.
Yeah.
And now the clinical side and the human side have come together.
Exactly.
Wow, what a good story. Wow, what a foundation you didn't even know you had.
Yeah, I really didn't. I remember at her wake the night before her funeral, my cousin, who's very dear to me, she said, she said, don't take this the wrong way. And it was a beautiful compliment, but she was basically saying, you are who you are because of your sister. Like, wow. I think it really helped you become a more empathetic person. And she's right. She's absolutely right that I couldn't help but be shaped by that experience, by growing up in a family where someone has a lot of special needs, and just it has an effect on how you look at the world and how you view death, how you view life. It really impacts everything.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah, thank you, Gina.
Erin. Yes,
she's here. She's here.
Yes. So what work were you doing before you started your company, Compassionate Coaching?
So I started it in 2020.
Okay.
And prior to that, for many years, since 2006, I've been a freelance actor in the DC area and a little bit of everything. This is my actual first time in a TV studio.
Oh, right.
Okay, so there's that. This is new.
Yes.
But I've done a lot of other stuff. And there's a lot of acting work that people don't necessarily know about. One type of thing is called standardized patient work. So a lot of medical schools will hire actors to play patients so that the medical students can practice having challenging conversations, or how to, get a shy patient to open up, or how to communicate with someone who's maybe the victim of domestic violence and trying to get help for them. So all sorts of different acting jobs I didn't even know existed, and I've been
Wow,
really...
I didn't know existed until you just said it too.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
but
really
it's
rare
great.
to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very important. It's very important because we want our future healthcare providers to communicate well, and we want them to try things, in a safe environment, in a low stakes environment, before they're having these conversations with real patients where they might not feel confident, they might not say things that could actually help, that could do some harm. So to think that as an actor I can help future doctors, it's really mind-blowing.
Wow, that is.
Yeah.
That had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a great experience. And I'm sure you learned a lot just about that industry and how much they have to relate to. They're very similar to our industry on the mortuary funeral home side. Yeah. So you just relate to everyone.
Exactly.
But it takes a skill and some practice sometimes.
Yes.
So you would be an actor, or actress, I should say, that would go in and you would role play. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you would be the patient or the doctor, just depended, or?
I would be the patient.
Okay.
I've been the patient so many times. I've played so many different, I've had so many diseases in my life, so many problems. And it got to the point where I was doing that for a while, and then they invited me to train other actors to portray some of the more challenging cases or the more challenging situations that students really needed to practice that felt a little bit more nuanced. So, for instance, one of them that really kind of led me to the work that I'm doing now had to do with hospice, and how do you say goodbye to a patient? How do you say that final goodbye? And it was actually challenging for medical students because they feel that they've failed, perhaps, because physicians are supposed to heal, and here's someone who
heal, send back home to your families. That's right.
Yes, but dying is a natural part of life, as we know, and so. How do you have that conversation at the end of life between healthcare provider and patient? And how do you accept a patient, saying thank you and you've done a great job, doctor? And how do you accept that? How do you have that conversation?
So why did you start compassion coaching? Is that why you started it?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So why did you start it?
Well, the pandemic hit.
Okay.
And almost every single acting job went away. This was, before we knew how to do Zoom work. And so everything just dried up, and I needed to find some way to help, support the family. Both my husband and I were freelancers, and so we really needed to kind of pivot, and I started compassionate coaching in the fall of 2020. And I didn't really know what I was doing as far as like what the company was becoming or who I wanted to help or how I wanted to help them. So when I started, I had a tagline, but I didn't have really a purpose or people I was serving. So at the time it was helping you move from weariness to hope. It felt very apropos for the pandemic, right?
Yes, yes.
So I was doing like life coaching and I did a couple other things. I did a Do Justice program for women, Christian women who wanted to do something and they wanted to answer the call in Micah to do justice, but they didn't know how or they didn't know like what was their heart, calling them, what was God calling them to do with that, the call to do justice. So I did that for a while, and then finally I realized, oh, wait a minute, like, I think I'm actually a communication skills coach because that's the type of work I've been doing in this acting world for so long. So then I said, oh, well, okay, I'm a communication skills coach. Who am I going to coach?
Right.
And so even that took on a few other turns. I started as a communication skills coach for other coaches, and then finally landed on, no, I really want to do this for bereavement and end-of-life professionals.
Well, so now what is the mission or that tagline?
Okay, I have a new tagline, new mission.
Yes. We want to hear it.
Okay. So our mission is to restore dignity to the grieving and the dying by filling the cups of and providing communication skills to those who serve them.
Oh, wow. May I please ask you to repeat that?
Oh, sure.
It was just beautiful.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
thank you.
Oh my goodness, such an inspiring tagline or
Thank you.
mission.
Thank
So
you,
please say that
Ruth.
one more time.
Sure.
Yes.
So Compassionate Coaching's mission is to restore dignity to the grieving and the dying by filling the cups of and providing communication skills to those who serve them.
Filling the cup.
Yes.
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 That is it. Yep. Filling the cup.
Yes.
Yep. Glass is full of inspiration, help, communication.
Yes.
To help them.
Yes.
Serve.
Help
Those
you
that
serve.
Help me serve.
Help you serve.
Help all of us in the life professionals serve those that need us.
Exactly. Because I cannot tell you,
Yes.
Ruth, how many times when I talk about working with people in your industry, the response is, I could never do that.
Yes.
And I say, I could never do it either.
Right. Exactly.
Like, I can't. So we need those of you who can do it to do it.
Right.
Because we need you.
Yes. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And it's you make us need you. Just that alone.
It's
it
a
is.
give.
And you're right. There's not a lot of people operating in either space.
No.
So when you can find someone that has that kind of mission, which is to fill our cup, it's definitely rewarding and inspiring, and you want to pull in and pull into it. So,
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
So how does acting help with your communication?
Oh,
How do you tie that in?
it's a great question.
Yes. How do you tie it in? Because, my goodness, that had to be rewarding as well.
So rewarding. So rewarding. Like I said earlier, it's amazing to say, oh, as an actor, I can help healthcare professionals.
Yes.
Like it just is mind-blowing, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So actors, we study human behavior, we study humanity, we study emotion, and we can access it through our own lived experience, and we're able to kind of put on a persona or step into someone else's everything experience, step into someone else's personality, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, all of it. And so if we're able to kind of step into that, someone else can practice, how to converse with us, right? And then we can give feedback and we can say, okay, when you did it this way, I felt more isolated. And when you said this, I felt so connected to you. Sometimes the feedback is when you said nothing at all, when you paused, that's when I felt most connected.
Most connected. See? Wow.
Right?
Wonderful.
Right?
Yeah. So
Don't we
it
want to
makes
fill the space?
We do.
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
And it's just human nature to want to do that. So I can directly, now that you've explained that, I can see how those skills for all those years, being the fake patient, if you will, now ties into compassionate coaching and how you can use that to help others. Wow.
Exactly.
What a dynamic industry that you've brought into this conversation and what you do.
It's so fun.
It is.
It's really fun. It's really fun.
Well, Erin, it is time for a short break. We will return after these messages.
Trying to straighten your teeth yourself can cause serious damage and tooth loss. Moving teeth is a healthcare procedure that needs the supervision of an orthodontist. These are experts in moving teeth and aligning jaws. For more, visit mylifemysmile.org.
Welcome back. You are watching In the Cool of the Day, and today's segment of Lay to Rest, Live Well, End Well, with my very special guest, the founder of Compassionate Coaching, Erin Welling. So prior to the break, we were just discussing how you turn your acting into compassionate coaching and how do you use them both. And now I want to know, you go into companies and you help them and professionals like myself. So internally, we probably have the ability, I'm sure companies, hospice professionals or those companies, they can internally do the role playing. But what would be more of the benefit of hiring your company to come in and bringing your team in versus internal role playing? What would be the benefits of that?
So there are a couple benefits.
Okay.
The main one is that if you have a company, say it's hospice nurses, and maybe they're training new hospice nurses, and so maybe one of the nursing staff role plays and is pretending to be a family member or a patient, and so that the new nurses can practice. Well, the person who's pretending to be the patient or the family member, they can't unknow what they know. They can't erase their knowledge as a nurse. They can't erase their knowledge and experience of how it normally goes. And they're also probably thinking a lot of different things as they're going through, and so they can't really fully commit to portraying that person. But when you bring in an actor, they're much more able to have the skill of fully embodying that person, and they don't have that preconceived, or not preconceived, but just the experience and the knowledge of the profession. If you want to practice, having the conversation that is every day for you, you need to have the person who's pretending to be someone who doesn't know to actually not know and come in and be that person so that they can practice. And then the actors, the role players, actually have a very special skill of not only being present and fully being that person, embodying that person, but then they're also almost like splitting their attention, because then they're also paying very close attention to how they're feeling so that they can offer their insights later. So the example I gave earlier about, when you said it this way, I felt isolated, but then when you phrased it this way, I felt more connected to you. Like they're able to kind of mark those moments and to give the insight that, when you said this or did this, it had an impact on me. But if you're a nurse, if you're an RN with 40 years experience as an RN, you're not going to come in with that level of vulnerability and emptying yourself of all of that experience. You really can't empty yourself of it.
No, you're right. And I think it would be, sounds like a person with that level of experience and internally doing it, that would be more of a training session.
Exactly.
Where you're trying to get the person to role play so that they can get some more life experience without being in the life.
Exactly.
Because it's such a delicate topic. It's a very, very delicate emotion.
Yes.
And so you don't need to have someone go in there totally untrained or vulnerable when they're dealing in this experience.
Exactly.
So I can see that.
Yeah.
And when you complete the role playing for an organization, what's been the feedback?
So the feedback has been very positive, that it is interactive. Right? Which that's the acting that I bring to it, right? It's really, the opportunity is much more hands-on, because we've all been to trainings and, summits and workshops that we don't necessarily remember what we learned or what was presented to us. But when you're actually in, the environment where you're practicing with people, you're practicing with professional actors, you're going to remember it much more. And even if you're not the one practicing, but your colleague is practicing and you're observing it, it's still this very highly engaging process that it's just so innovative, and yet it's so simple. Right? Bringing in humans to do the work, because it's human. We're all trying to figure out how to communicate with each other in the most compassionate and effective way.
Right. Yeah, and I can also see where this role playing would make a difference too, versus my colleagues or my peers, because you're a stranger.
Yes.
So, and that's most of the people we meet they're strangers. We haven't met them before, or their families. So that also adds a different element to it. Versus if I'm with my colleague that I've worked with for 10 years. You know each other. Right. So it's kind of a safer place, even though we're role playing. Well, thank you for explaining that. That makes a lot of sense. So you've been through a lot of different iterations of your company and your career and all of those things. I understand the Gina's experience. But how did you decide to really focus in on the end-of-life professionals and the bereavement professionals? How did you, because you can do compassionate coaching in a lot of different areas. Everybody needs a little bit of that, right?
Yes, we all do.
So how did you say, I'm going to narrow in and focus on those professions?
It was a process. Okay. I definitely spent a decent amount of time in prayer. Like, once I really committed to, I'm going to pray like every week, for my business and for guidance, making sure that I'm, quote unquote, on the right path. And that's when I started getting clarity about wanting to be in that field, in that world. I'm Catholic, and the church that I go to sometimes is a little chapel where I can spend some time with the Lord. And there's this beautiful statue of, it's like the Pietà, but it's a little different.
Right.
But it's Mary holding Christ after he is taken down from the cross, and it's just not hauntingly. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it was, after a week and week of prayer, in that chapel, and, in the presence of this beautiful art that shows grief and death, like, simultaneously. And just, it wasn't just that. It wasn't like a light bulb moment. It was just kind of a slower coming understanding. And I also just, I went through and I started journaling, like, what are the moments, the breadcrumbs almost in my life, what are the jobs that I've really enjoyed, or the tugs that I felt in my heart, and those things, like, okay, the fact that I was born into this family where my sister was going to die before me, it was almost certain. So what do all of those experiences mean? And so through the prayer and the journaling, that's how I landed on, I think it has to do with grief. I think it has to do with death. And then started
putting your energy there.
Putting my energy there.
Yes. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I can't thank you enough for my profession. But now I want to ask you, what is playback theater?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked.
Yes. You've mentioned it. Now I want to kind of tell our audience, what is playback theater?
So playback theater is a very specific art form of improvisational theater. It's been around for, I think, 50 years. I've personally been doing this art form since 2010. Took a little bit of time off when my son was born, but roughly since 2010. And we elicit stories from our audience.
Okay.
Now, our audience can be, we can do a show that's open to the public, and maybe it's based around a theme, or we take this art form and we go into a company or an organization or a team. And what we do is we elicit the stories of the people there, and we have a troupe of actors and a musician, and we're all listening very intently to the telling of the story. And someone is there to kind of facilitate the process. They're called the conductor.
Okay.
And then what we do is everyone hears the conductor say, "Let's watch," or they invite the whole room to say, "Let's watch." And then immediately, without any rehearsal, without any planning or discussion, the actors and the musician will play back the story that was just told. And it's very powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful.
Yeah.
It sounds powerful, and I had to experience it, and it's very powerful. It's unbelievable, the power that it has. So why do you think that type of art form is so important for compassionate coaching?
I think because it really aligns with our mission, because we want to fill the cups of bereavement and end-of-life professionals, right? And I think one of the ways people need their cups filled is empathy. They need to feel seen and heard and valued, and they need to know that they're not alone. And when we share our stories, we can see and hear that, there's something about that person's story that is very resonant with me, or that really reminds me of, this part of my life or that person in my life. And we do realize just in the hearing of other stories that we're not alone. But then the playing back, it's this artistic experience of getting to see your story reflected back to you in an artistic way. It really can stay with you. It's a memorable experience. It's like a gift that the actors and the musician just kind of hand you, and it's something for your heart.
Right.
Right? It really speaks to your heart, and it really helps people feel seen, heard, and valued.
Wow, what a great answer. So I guess it would be that it's needed in a sense for the professionals in end of life and bereavement. It's needed for them to have that level of release.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, the release too. It can be really cathartic, really helpful to, we hold on to these experiences and these stories, and sometimes we need to share them to have that release and to have that camaraderie.
Yes.
And if you're with other people who know that world, it just bonds you on a very deep level.
Deep level, yep, it does. All right, so why don't you tell me what like tips or and maybe I don't know if advice is the right word, but maybe what tips you could offer our audience today on how to improve their communication skills, even if they're maybe not at end of life professional or bereavement, but a lot of families, you know, there's usually one chosen one in a family that is the one that's going to handle all the business affairs. Then there's usually someone that's going to handle all the medical affairs, and then together they figure out who's going to be with their loved one during this dying process. What kind of communication tips that maybe you can offer some of our audience? And then there's some professionals that are listening as well.
Sure.
But some tips in communication that you can offer.
I like to think of heart moments and head moments. And so I heard you, talk about, well, there's someone to handle the medical affairs and the legal affairs and scheduling who's going to be with mom or dad. And I mean, there's just so much data and logistics and sifting through and sorting through. Like it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And so I think stopping to recognize, like, what is the emotional state of the person that I'm with? You know, are they overwhelmed? Are they anxious? Are they stressed out? Are they resentful? And just, checking in, right? Checking in.
That's a big deal.
Even as simple as, how are you doing with this, sis?
Yes.
Like, how are you feeling? I know you've been taking on, a lot of the medical aspects of mom's care. Like, how are you?
How are you, right?
How are you? And then listening to what people actually say. Like, that's one of the things we have to do as playback practitioners is we have to listen very carefully.
Right.
And so you kind of have to listen with your heart too. Like what's underneath it? What's underneath the thing that the person's saying? And can I say that back to them? Can I repeat? Oh, it sounds like you're overwhelmed. Sounds like you're hurting.
Right. Wow. Great advice. Listening. And I like, most importantly, what you said, because I do this all the time with my brothers. I say, I'm checking in. And it's so important, just checking in.
Yes.
Letting you hear their voice, you hearing their voice, and letting them hear your voice, and that you're in it together.
Yes.
Yes, that's true communication.
Yes.
Especially in these heart moments, as you say, the heart moments.
Yeah.
So thank you, Erin, so much. And it's that time again. If you have any questions about today's segment, please see the information scrolling below. You've been watching In the Cool of the Day and today's segment of Lay to Rest, Live Well, End Well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.